Hello, my name is Connor, and I had the absolute pleasure to have a great, delightful phone call with Mr. Timothy Groom, who is the owner of Groom Properties in Peoria, Illinois. And wow, just before we get started, all I can say is what a great guy and what a fantastic businessman. I mean, through our brief, 15, 20-minute phone call that we had, I've learned a ton. I mean, he just really knows how to run a business, and it's a great role model. And I think he's someone that everyone should look up to when thinking about either starting a business or being someone in business. So let's get started. So, business leader description: his name is Timothy Groom. He's the owner of Groom Properties, and he's owned his business for about 20 years. And when I was talking to him in these 20 years, he's had a lot of hardships, but he's had a lot of great moments too. I mean, no one can start a business out, having it be perfect, but he's achieved so much. And he's actually a relative of mine, and he's someone I look up to. He really is. He's someone I see as a father figure, and he just has done absolute amazing work on everything he puts his heart into. He has a larger network in a smaller city, from my hometown, Peoria, Illinois, and he strives to help the city a ton. I mean, he's refurbished, re-renovated, resold, all kinds of things, these houses and commercial properties to give back to the community. It's unbelievable, and he's making great revenue off of it. I mean, he's just doing a fantastic job, in my opinion. He's a great leader. Uh, when I was talking to him, it's kind of funny. I actually worked for him over the summer, and getting to experience someone with that much, experience, 20 years of experience, you learn a lot. You learn a lot about business. You learn about, how you can tell someone's a good businessman, and he's a great leader. He has great morals. He never misses a day of work. He works all the time, actually. And I mean, he always puts everyone before himself. And I think those are some great qualifications to just be a fantastic leader. Application of leadership theory. So Mr. Groom possesses slash, aligns the most with relationship or oriented leader behavior. So it took me a minute to, when we were talking, I was like, which one do you think? And he has some of the best communication with people I've ever seen. I mean, he can communicate to anyone, and he will make sure the work is done. He is fantastic at, having good relationships with about everyone he was. I mean, he has communication that it's just fantastic, and I really, really admire it. Like, I really do. And then, leader behavior. He's a great leader. He really is. He shows up every day. He's a great employer. Networking, he has a broad range of people in his network. He hires a bunch of people, I would say, mostly about anywhere from 20 to 60. One of his best friends was working for him this summer while I was working for him, and he was just, happy to be there. And, he networks with people in the city, and he just likes to get the job done. Promoting yourself and doing it for the community, I mean, those are his big takeaways right there. And his consideration is very admirable. He's very considerate. He knows, something comes up, don't worry about it. He'll get the job done. It's on him. It's his business. Empowerment, I mean, he's great. I mean, he's great at empowering people, lifting them up, trying to make the community whole. And, it's very admirable. Ethical leadership, he has great ethics. He just really showed, when talking to him, I could tell he has great qualities. He has all these. His greatest achievements. So the greatest achievements of Timothy Groom, when talking to him, I, asked him what he thought. He said having a strong support system within the community. And you know what? I could not agree more. He has a fantastic support system with family, friends, employees, the city. I mean, you name it. It's really cool. And so I wanted to talk about this blight, helping clean up blight within the city. So blight is in the city of Peoria, an issue that everyday Americans or people that, try to afford living have an issue with. And he he's done a great job of doing that. He really has. Um, and he loves working on old homes and businesses in Peoria. I mean, he's worked not even just Peoria, he's worked in Galesburg, Princeville, and Dunlap. And it's really, really admirable. He has monthly meetings with city officials to make sure the changes are working. And it's pretty incredible, the stuff that he's done. And, as someone in college myself, I look to him as a father figure. I really do. He has done above and beyond what most people couldn't dream of. And all it takes is discipline. So, I mean, he has great listening, great empathy, healing, awareness, persuasion, just everything. He really, really does. And I could not say anything better about the guy. So, handling a challenge. So, when owning a business, there's a lot of challenges. And, one of his biggest things that he told me was inflation and price decreases can be a very difficult challenge. And I couldn't agree more. When owning real estate, it's a tricky game. You have a lot of things on the line, The market could crash, which the market did crash in '08. And, it actually benefited him in a sense, but it also didn't because, he bought more properties, but his properties that he had, didn't really do anything in value. It was hard to, make up for that, or those hard times. Having patience when it comes to renovations or unjust renters, I think that's a huge one. I mean, he is one of the most patient men I've ever met in my life, I will say. Um, Sometimes you get some bad renters, just like you get bad employees in the workplace, and you have to figure out how to deal with that. And that's one thing he does. He has a lot of patience and he deals with it. And he handles that. He really does. He handles that really well. And that's how when it comes to handling a challenge, that's what you got to do. The response that Mr. Groom gave, I think they both align with managerial and leadership roles. I really do, because managerial, when you're a manager or own a business or anything like that, you have to be on top of it, and you have to show, up, and you have to, make changes when you don't want to. When things happen, it's at you. You have to be in charge of that. And leadership, I mean, he is a great leader. His employees value him. I mean, life is not always easy, and I just think those are two fantastic, roles that he fits. I would say Mr. Groom is both of those titles. The characteristics of leadership for each area while dealing with these challenges, listening, empathy, the same thing that we had. I would say he does really well on all of them. I really think he does, and I think he is a great leader, and anyone would tell you that, and I am really proud. I really am, Owning a business is not easy, and he shows up, and he puts the work in every day. So, power bases of impact behavior. So, Mr. Groom uses connection power through his connections and communication skills to resolve the challenges that he has faced within his business. I think he's used a lot of great connection power. He tells me all the time when I talk to him, how important connections are, especially being in college here at GCU. And I think that's a great point. I mean, seriously, I wouldn't be half the places I was if it wasn't for connections. He actually got me a job connection down at the courthouse because he's good friends with the circuit clerk of Peoria, and I have been considering going into law, and I think he's done a great job of helping me through that. And it's really important. He's gotten through a lot with connections, and being in the city and helping all that, you got to have those kinds of connections. Connection power was used by having a vast network in his field, and kind of what I just hit a point on. It really was. He's made a great network just because of everyone he's known, and that's why his business still to this day is thriving. Legitimate power was used by using his authority as president of his company, which is very true. I thought he has legitimate power over everything. It's his company, his business, and he does a great job. He has done really well. Not saying it's always sunshine and rainbows, but he goes into work and he makes it what it's supposed to be. Mr. Groom is a strong-minded man who does not let anything get to his head. When I talked to him on the phone, he told me, he said, one thing about life is you can't let people get you down. And it's very true because, I mean, you have to be strong-willed to own a business. And it's not easy. No one's ever going to say it's easy. You can either strive and have a great business and do great, or, you can start a business, and if you start to fall through the cracks, it can be really hard to get back up. And I think that's something very admirable about him, is that he is strong-minded and, he won't let anything get to his head. Leadership style comparison. So, guy back home, Peoria, Illinois. So Mr. Groom has a leadership style that compares very well to Jeff Cohen, a man with over 3,000 properties, and who has helped his community out tremendously. So Jeff Cohen, he's a guy from back home who also owns a lot of real estate in Peoria. Him and my dad are good friends, and Jeff Cohen has done extremely well, and he is a great figure in the Peoria Eye. He just always has. I come from a very liberal state, and, everyone has different opinions about everything, but Mr. Cohen, he does the job. He does a great job, and I can see why Mr. Groom would, want to say that that's his leadership style that he compares to. I understand it. I really do. A leadership style that differs from Mr. Groom and Mr. Cohen is that Mr. Cohen, he actually takes a demographic approach based on different ideas and values, which everyone is based to their own different type of leadership style. That's just Mr. Cohen's, and it's admirable because he's done a great job. The strengths of leading through servant leadership are brings people together for a common goal, understanding, listening. So those are some strengths, and I would say Mr. Groom, he almost has all of them, honestly. He always has a common goal. He's very understanding, and he has to listen. He has to know what's going on. Some weaknesses of servant leadership are that few possess such qualities that can sometimes be seen as a weakness, which is really true because nowadays it's really hard to find someone who has a leadership style, I would say. I mean, of course, I'm not saying there's not any, but it's very hard, and it's hard with just how the world works, and it's hard to find those kinds of good people in your life. The strengths of leading through a democratic approach are that ideas can come to life. It's great. Everyone has a voice, and employees are happy. Everyone's happy and heard, and I think that's admirable. That's why, Mr. Cohen has done a great job. He's done something right, and I would say his, leadership style, that definitely contributes to it, And I would say a weakness of the democratic approach is the negative light in the community. I mean, I know a lot of people aren't the biggest fans of him, and that's hard when you have a democratic approach because you really put yourself on a pedestal, and if you don't always reach that pedestal, it can be hard. And sometimes people see it as wasting time. You can tell them, oh, this, and it doesn't always work. And luckily for Mr. Cohen, it's worked out in his favor, but that's not always the case. So, some leadership lessons. So, Mr. Groom, he's the president of his company. He's very entrepreneurial, and He's bought properties for over 20 years. He's flipped them. He's rented them. He's done commercial. You name it. And it's a good thing. He's done great. The mission of his company is to effectively and efficiently purchase, rehab, and sell properties and to reinvest into future real estate opportunities. I think that is a fantastic mission statement. I mean, it shows the point of his business right there. He wants to do all that, and he strives and he continues to work every day to make sure that happens. And it's really, really cool. Let's see, here we go. The characteristic of leadership for each area in the entrepreneurial mindset. So there's a bunch. We have risk propensity, which I am at a 4. I would say most of these are pretty high, but I did have to say for his tolerance of ambiguity, which I respect, he told me about a 3, and I understand. I thought it would be lower personally, but he is a very patient guy. I mean, I don't think I've ever met anyone as patient as him. And, sometimes people can really, handle that kind of stuff, which it's admirable. His emotional stability, he told me about a 4, which I understand too, because, sometimes After a hard day of work, it can be emotional. And, trying to put a happy face on all the time, it can be hard. But when it comes to work, I would say he's very emotional stable. But yeah, he's done a great job. His focus of control. He's very creative, very creative. When he works on houses, he told me he loves to put his heart and soul into everything that he does. And he showed me pictures and everything of properties he's done. And I've worked on one personally, and he has fantastic ideas. He is so creative, and it's a really cool thing to do because we need more creative people out there in everyday life. So, reflections. I chose Timothy Groom because my whole life I've seen him do spectacular work and would love to be just as successful or more, I think it's a really great business he started, and I've personally always loved real estate, and having him as a mentor growing up, I thought it was a really cool thing to get into. A follow-up question I asked him was if he ever considered choosing a different path. He responded with, "I am very proud of the work I put into my business, and I honestly love what I do. I had a different idea straight out of college, but it worked out for the best." So his idea out of college was that he was actually going to work in the corporate world, and he did. He did for about 5 years, and he worked his way up, and he traveled a ton. It was for a molding company, and he just wasn't feeling it. It wasn't his purpose. And, I think it's fantastic that he started up his own business and has been as successful as he is. He always gave me great straight answers and made sure he answered all my questions. He really did. He did a great job on that. The interview and research process provided valuable insights into effective leadership practices and the ways business leaders utilize power to address any challenges that they may face. Through my conversation with Mr. Groom, I learned about the importance of combining multiple power bases, such as connection power and legitimate power, to achieve a successful business. Mr. Groom demonstrated the significance of building and maintaining a strong network by leveraging his connection and communication skills. He was able to navigate complex challenges and create opportunities for his business. This showed me how essential it is for leaders to develop and sustain professional relationships within their areas of business, which is very true. He really did. It opened my eyes a lot. I never would have known it took that much to put into a business, and how important, lifelong connections can be when having a business or even in the workplace. They really do help, and he did a great job of explaining that to me, and it was a great experience to be able to talk to him. So these are my resources. So for the democratic leadership style, I just wanted to say that was something I wanted to read more into. That was something I wanted to understand more, because, there's a lot of different topics about democratic styles, and leadership one was one I wasn't as familiar with, but I wanted to understand it better. And I thought I got a good thing, but